An unspeakable tragedy hit the Jones-Asse family in the tranquil village of Meadowville, creating a gap that appeared difficult to fill. Loretta and Heidi Jones-Asse, a devoted mother-daughter team, were the victims of a horrible murder that rocked the town to its core. In the middle of the anguish and despair, however, an unexpected ray of hope appeared in the form of a 4-year-old girl whose innocence disguised a bright intellect capable of exposing the truth. The Duperreault family set off on an apparently peaceful sailing expedition in the gorgeous seas of the Bahamas in 1961. Arthur and Jean, together with their 3 children, Brian, Terry Jo, and Renee, set sail aboard the Bluebell, looking forward to a fun-filled nautical trip. They had no idea that their lovely journey would turn into a nightmare that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The promise of calm gave way to a terrifying reality as the family traversed the blue waters. The tranquility of the Bahamian seas concealed the coming disaster. The Bluebell, unbeknownst to the Duperreaults, would become the setting for a sad series of events in 1961. The once pleasant journey turned into a nightmare adventure, leaving an unforgettable mark on the minds of Arthur, Jean, Brian, Terry Jo, and Renee. On July 30th, 1970, in Price, Utah, the Jones family experienced a sorrow that would last for decades. Loretta Jones, a single unmarried mother, was happy with her 4-year-old daughter, Heidi. Loretta's bond was severed when she was cruelly killed on that beautiful July night. The 23-year-old mother was stabbed, leaving Heidi afraid and alone in a neighbor's house. Following that, the police launched an investigation with few leads. Fear seized the town, which was exacerbated by another attack just 3 blocks away, in which 10-year-old Lori Kula was assaulted on the same night. The odd link between the 2 tragedies shook the community of Price, which was searching for answers. The Jones family gradually came to terms with the terrible reality of a stalled inquiry. Loretta's murder loomed as an unsolved mystery, with few arrests and a shrinking field of suspects. Heidi struggled with the lingering shame of her mother's assailant dodging punishment, reluctant to give up her search for closure. Her drive only became stronger over time, spurred by an unrelenting desire to obtain justice for her mother. Heidi began a tireless attempt to resurrect her mother's case in 1989 when she was 23 years old. She ran a persistent campaign, sending letters to various law enforcement organizations in an attempt to rekindle interest in the unresolved tragedy. Despite the fact that the years had passed with no reaction, Heidi remained faithful in her aim to keep her mother's legacy from drifting into obscurity. Heidi's key moment came in 2009 when she reconnected with childhood buddy David Brewer, who was now a detective. Heidi related the horrible events of her mother's death on that fateful night in 1970 in a moving interaction. However, their attempts were thwarted when they discovered the mysterious loss of the original case files, leaving them without critical forensic evidence. Undaunted, Detective Brewer set out on a careful quest through written testimony and archival newspaper clippings. He began to piece together the broken story surrounding Loretta Jones's murder through this laborious approach. Lori Kula's description of her own attack on that fateful night provided a critical breakthrough, leading them toward a likely suspect, Tom Eagley. Tom had escaped prosecution after being temporarily captured in 1970, owing to a lack of significant evidence. Despite their continuous pursuit, the case appeared to come to a halt. Heidi came into a box of well-maintained artifacts curated by her grandma throughout the years at this point. Among these items was a disturbing crime scene photograph, which depicted Loretta's hand submerged in a pool of blood. This surprising finding shattered the investigation's basis, implying that Loretta Jones had scrawled the name of her assailant in her last moments. The discovery of this frightening snapshot ushered in a new chapter in their fight for justice, reviving a previously halted case. As the jigsaw came together, Heidi and Detective Brewer found themselves on the verge of a breakthrough that might ultimately reveal the truth about Loretta's untimely death. The frightening revelation rekindled Detective Brewer's unyielding determination to bring justice to the Jones family. Despite various challenges, including the conspicuous lack of DNA evidence, Brewer remained steadfast in his quest for the truth. The tipping point came in 2016, when an unwary neighbor of Tom Eagley secretly filmed Eagley confessing to the horrible act, unwittingly assisting the investigation. Inside the courtroom, Tom Eagley confronted the long-awaited repercussions of a murder committed 46 years earlier. Heidi found closure and justice when the judge handed down a sentence of 10 years to life. Heidi bared the emotional wounds of her mother's absence in a dramatic and compelling impact statement, emphasizing the terrible impact it had on her life. Heidi's path, distinguished by tenacity and unbreakable endurance, became a symbol of the tenacity that motivates the search for justice. Loretta, her mother, rose above the position of a victim to become a beacon of steadfast strength and endurance. In both the Duperrault and Jones incidents, the haunting waters that previously signified tranquility became heartbreaking memories of the horrors that unfolded, leaving permanent scars on the survivors' lives. Detective Brewer's perseverance was crucial in unraveling the puzzles surrounding Loretta Jones's murder in the court system. The lack of critical DNA evidence, a daunting hurdle, did not dissuade Brewer from his pursuit. His commitment to the truth paid off in 2016, when a neighbor unwittingly became a significant ally by capturing Tom Eagley's admission of guilt. As Eagley stood in the courtroom, the weight of his activities finally catching up with him, the judge's punishment was the conclusion of decades of work. The impact echoed well beyond the courthouse walls, bringing Heidi Jones some closure. Her impact statement, given with composure and emotion, revealed the long-lasting scars left by her mother's sudden death. Heidi's path represented a fundamental lesson in resilience, proving that the search for justice has no time limit. Loretta Jones, a pillar of fortitude, became more than a victim. Her legacy reflected the steadfast spirit that spurred Heidi onward. The peaceful waterways that once tempted both the Duperrault and Jones families to sail became haunting reminders of the unfathomable gloom that engulfed them. The tenacity of survivors like Heidi Jones serves as a tribute to the tenacious human spirit in the collective story of these situations. Detective Brewer's commitment to uncovering the truth became a ray of hope in the face of apparently insurmountable odds. The Duperrault and Jones cases, separated by years and circumstances, intersected in the mutual pursuit of justice, demonstrating the profound wounds left by acts of inexplicable brutality. However, Heidi Jones Assay spoke with A&E True Crime about her moving struggle to seek justice for her mother. Heidi acknowledged the emotional toll her mother's murder took on her family, as well as how the killer's persistent presence influenced her life, in her reflection on the terrible impact of her mother's death. Heidi, who was only 4 years old at the time, experienced the hard reality of growing up without her mother in the aftermath of her mother's sad death in 1970. Her grandparents adopted her in 1973, and the tragic situation prompted her aunts and uncles to band together to become her new siblings. To cope with the pain, the family chose to avoid discussing Loretta's murder, especially given the devastating impact it had on her grandparents. The stress of the unresolved case took its toll on Heidi's grandfather, who died of a heart attack in 1974. Heidi's early years were overshadowed by the lingering presence of her mother's murderer, who was free and unidentified. Conversations with the police, especially when aimed at her bereaved grandma, would cause her great emotional distress. Heidi found it difficult to tolerate witnessing her grandmother's suffering, so she blocked out many of the awful events surrounding her mother's death. Heidi found it challenging to handle the aftermath of the catastrophe, as well as the death of her grandfather. The legacy of her mother's death followed Heidi as she began her scholastic path. Many people heard her tale when she was in kindergarten, but as she proceeded through junior high and high school, her mother's memory appeared to slip into the background. The sadness faded into the background, overwhelmed by the story of a huge family with many siblings, rather than the reality of Heidi being an only child and orphan. Heidi underlined the significance of retaining hope in the midst of sadness in answer to the interviewer's question about what she wanted others to know. She expressed sympathy for families struggling with the consequences of brutal acts and urged them not to give up hope. Heidi's favorite word, her motto, is belief. In her opinion, as long as there is hope, there is still hope for justice. Her personal journey, distinguished by strength and perseverance, exemplifies the transformational power of conviction. Heidi's tale is one of overcoming the enormous hurdles provided by her mother's unsolved murder. Her story is intertwined with emotional wounds, the weight of familial loss, and the quest to pursue justice. Finally, her message serves as a beacon of hope for people dealing with similar tragedies, demonstrating that believing in the prospect of justice may be a powerful driver for change. Heidi's tale inspires perseverance in the search for justice. What role does unshakable faith play in your personal journey? Well, that's it for today. Make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing videos. Thanks for watching the video. We'll see you at the next one.